The Athletics, Dan Wiederer with us now on 6-7 The Score. Dan, good morning. How do the Wiederers celebrate the new year incoming?
Hey, happy early New Year to you both. It is difficult in the football world to do so traditionally,
I was
having to
just
go up to
saying the
House Hall
same
both
thing.
today and tomorrow. It's going to be a little bit low key. We're gonna squeeze in some fun later tonight, and then obviously, I guess a relatively early bedtime, and be ready to roll on January 1st for what's a full Thursday out at House Hall for Week 18.
Unbelievable. Happy New Year, Weedsy. I know you'll bring the juice today, as you always do. I wanted to start this off with asking you, I think just kind of chronologically speaking here, after what happened on Monday night with the Rams losing, obviously we sort of have been able to narrow down the Bears' potential opponents for that first playoff game. And I promise you we will get to week 18 and that importance as well. But with the playoff seeding sort of or potential matchup sort of coming into light here, how would you rank the best case scenario for the Bears in terms of, who they could potentially see in that first round game?
It's crazy because you sort of have this fear of facing the Packers for a third time, and particularly with those stakes. I think that's sort of Chicago's undercurrent, right? Of like, oh, do we really want to do that again? But my thing is they seem to be reeling significantly. And for a season that has been built on fearlessness, directed by a fearless coach in Ben Johnson, that's the test that you want to take. Go take it next week. Bring them to your building. Try to replicate what you did a couple weeks ago, maybe in less dramatic form. that you pulled off that win against the Packers at Soldier Field a couple weeks back. Those teams in the NFC West scare me. They just seem very complete, all three of them. And so, I'd prefer to avoid them for as long as possible. Obviously, you're going to have to run into them at some point, but that's where I would kind of have my sights focused.
Guests join us on the Arturo hotline. Arturo, your hometown tire, Arturo.com. She's Ruthie. I'm Judson in for Mully Haugh. He is Dan Wiederer of The Athletic. Dan, how important is the 2 seed versus the 3 seed? I understand it's just one spot, but this is such a drastically better team at home versus on the road as we watched in 2025.
Yeah, it's been an impressive home season at Soldier Field, and look, like they've had some big games there in recent weeks, and you've felt the energy of that building, and so that's notable. The other thing is you can't just count on the number 1 seed winning
Right.
its divisional round game. If they lose and you're the 2 seed, you get to host the NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
So that's important, right? Like that's what you play for, and so like I don't think we should underestimate that sort of subplot to this entire final week of the regular season and what's at stake for the Bears if they can handle their business.
How would you assess? Obviously, we heard Ben Johnson on Monday say we're going out there to win this game. How would you assess sort of how they manage potential guys in this game? Really, the Rome Odunze situation is, I think, the one we'll be keeping our eye on this week.
Yeah, and I think today everyone's kind of curious. They're only going to do a walkthrough out at House Hall, but we will get an estimated injury report at the end of the day. Luther Burden seemed to express after the game that he was going to be okay, but that's one of those ones like let's keep an eye on it. Let's see what the injury report says. Let's see what the practice participation is this week. I think as a team, you want to be setting yourself up to be as strong as possible for the wild card round. And so they're going to have some decisions to make, some things to keep an eye on, and you're going to be aggressive, but you're going to be cautious when it's prudent, And so I would expect them to strike the right balance there, figure out a way to put themselves in position. If Rome Odunze does play, I would guess that they would give him a pitch count here just to be safe. And then you just kind of roll into week 19, which for us usually is a very strange transition week in Chicago, and this year we get playoff football, which is a lot of fun.
Dan, how has Caleb Williams changed our expectations of him and his ceiling from August now to January?
Well, Judson, I am blown away by how far he's come in areas just like the pre-snap operational command part of things, the ability to get increasingly comfortable after the snap with what he's seeing and where he needs to go with the football. There's a long way to go yet. There's no question about it. And there are a lot of flaws here that are going to need addressing during the 2026 offseason. but no one can deny the volume of progress that we've seen since the spring, really, until now, in terms of the ways that he's adapted to the demands of Ben Johnson, of understanding what playing quarterback on the NFL level really involves and entails on an everyday basis. And so there's been a huge leap there. I think from the day he got into House Hall, the ceiling was expected to be what the ceiling of every number one overall pick is, as a guy that could one day lead you into a confetti shower at the Super Bowl. And so I don't think that ceiling has come down. Now, I do think that you need to be very honest with yourself again in the offseason of 2026 about how you become the best, most complete quarterback possible. And there are areas of Caleb's game that need to be worked on. Some of the on script, on schedule stuff needs to be ironed out a little bit. But there's no question that his growth has been huge, and that game on Sunday night was obviously a real statement performance on a big stage.
Thinking about that Sunday night game, before we fully turn the page here, I wanted to get your assessment of that final drive and how it ended.
Well, I think that there's like a mini documentary to be made about the entire series, and I'd be curious to know how the coaching staff went through it. It's 15 plays, and there's a lot in there where you're just left kind of, like so close, whether it's the Devin Duvernay coming wide open, Caleb being blitzed and not being able to get the ball to him for what might have been a game-winning touchdown, whether it's the drops on the series by Loveland and Burden, whether it's the complete disarray on the last play, which I don't think we should underestimate and understate, because that is a game on the line, season changing play that if you win the game, we're talking about the Bears possibly getting a chance to leapfrog the wild card round of the playoffs, get a bye, and be already in the divisional round hosting the NFC playoffs. And you don't even get to run the play that you wanted to run because there's disorganization and chaos, and it all just breaks down. The 49ers send a two-man rush at you, and one guy gets through unblocked. Like, there are a lot of questions that need to be answered about that final sequence, and some things that need to be figured out, because it did potentially reroute them on the path that they could take to a Super Bowl. And so you have to be very serious inside the building of finding out why that drive didn't end with points. Even though it got all the way to the 2-yard line and was pretty impressive, the finish of it is pretty galling. And I imagine the coaching staff will look at that with a critical eye.
Dan, one of the discussions Ruthie and I have had this morning is, what's impressed you more about Ben Johnson? The offensive mind, the quarterback acumen to get Caleb Williams to where he is currently, or the head coaching acumen and what he's done to impact that team? Which would you lean toward that's been more impressive?
It's the head coaching acumen for me. It's just how complete he is in understanding what his role is as a leader, in being able to have both this vision for what he wants his team to be and a communication style that's resonated across the building with the coaching staff, inside the locker room, all of it. Ben has been a presence in 2025, and his arrival to Chicago is maybe the biggest story of the sports year here in this city. And so to see what he's done here, turning this franchise around. We guys, reflect on last December 31st. The Bears were in the middle of a 10-game losing streak, coming off a 6-3 primetime loss to the Seahawks, and in complete disarray, total embarrassment at the time. And 365 days later, we're talking about what's their path to the Super Bowl this year, right? Like, it's incredible where this journey has gone, and Ben has obviously been the engine of it. And listen, like you guys, Ruthie, you said at the start that I'm going to bring the juice. I don't know that I can match Ben Johnson's juice. That dude is passion all the time. He's purpose all the time, and you see why it resonates.
I totally agree. I think one of the concerns when you do think about this team making a run to the Super Bowl is what we saw on the defensive side on Sunday night, and just sort of the holes that were exposed. I wonder where you think there can be the most quick fixes, I guess is how I'm going to phrase that to you. Like, how does that get corrected before they maybe even have to see the 49ers again in this postseason?
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, man, it's a dreadful matchup, because you see how hot that 49ers team is, and you see how easy it was for them to kind of go through you in every different way, shape, and form. Brock Purdy was in his zone. Christian McCaffrey was in his zone. They were without Kittle. They were without Trent Williams for most of the game, and they still put up the numbers they put up on you. And so you have to be alarmed a little bit at a trend of giving up these explosive plays, of being a little bit vulnerable. I don't know that there are any quick fixes here, Ruthie. I think you have to figure out a way to generate more disruption on opposing quarterbacks, and they haven't been able to get that done all season. It might be something that takes a little shopping trip in free agency, followed by some good scouting and selecting in the draft to truly get the next level of defensive line and edge rushing prowess. And so they're going to have to find a way to manufacture that here in the weeks to come.
Is Trayvon Diggs a realistic potential help, quick fix if he clears waivers? And obviously his relationship with Al Harris is one that I think is well known.
Well, look, I think you're pretty stacked in that position room right now, and I know obviously you're always looking for for upgrades if you can find them. So we'll see if they kick the tires on that and what that would potentially look like. I don't know. I'm not really sure if that's something that would find their way to them. But look, like I think this defense has obviously shown that its biggest strength is taking the football away. They've got 32 takeaways this season. Al Harris has been a big reason why in coaching those DBs up the way he has. And so we'll see what they can get done here in the next few weeks to maximize what's left of this season.
Dan, the sky is falling a little bit in Detroit.
It is.
And anything that the Bears can learn, or what should we, I go back to Dan Campbell's comments after the 2023 NFC Championship game that they lost about the difficulty of how hard it is to get there and how next year is going to be twice as hard as it was this year. What can we kind of learn or surmise from what's happened in Detroit versus what we're now watching in Chicago?
Yeah, it's just the latest reminder that this is a life comes at you fast league. It really is. And so you kind of reflect again 365 days ago where that franchise was and believing that they were the team that was ready to win the Super Bowl. They were the 1 seed last year in the NFC, and now they're not going to be in the playoffs. They lost both coordinators. Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. They lost a whole bunch of assistants from Dan Campbell's staff. They lost 2 interior offensive line starters, and a third had to change positions. Their safeties have been beat up. It's just been a year of disarray, and it's just a reminder of just how difficult it is to sustain success in this league and how you shouldn't really prematurely celebrate anything. We have no idea if the Bears are going to be back in the playoffs in 2026. And so when you learn that lesson and you see that through the lens of what the Lions have done this year, you say, look, we are a really good football team here with a runway into the playoffs and an opportunity to go squeeze the most out of this year. And so we should not take that for granted. And we can reflect and plan ahead for 2026 the minute we lose our last game in the playoffs. Before that, it's all about staying present in the now and trying to lock yourself in on winning these very, very important games and trying to get Chicago a playoff victory for the first time since January 2011.
You talk about the transformation in 365 days. How about the transformation just in 16 weeks since week 2 in Detroit?
Oh, yeah. No, and Ben Johnson said something on Monday. He used the word vividly to say how he remembered that day in Detroit. And so I'm interested today to get out there and just ask him a little bit more about that, because that's the type of thing that sticks with him. And I'd imagine a lot of those guys in the locker room remember the feeling of losing by 30. And guys, I for our next Take the North podcast, I'm pulling some audio of our post-game episode from after that game in Detroit, because if you listen to that and then you reflect on the conversations we're having here this morning together, you say, whoa, how did that happen? Because the Monday after the Detroit game here in this city was the highest volume of doom that we've felt in some time. And this is a city that knows doom really well.
Dan, does the name change to Taken the North?
Oh.
Or okay, tell me.
My brother suggested that for 2026 we just call it Never Give It Back, and so that was something that the committee will take under advisement, as I've said a couple times, and we'll see what we decide to do with it. But again, this podcast started in 2022 when that sort of slogan was more catchy than it became over 2022, 2023, and 2024.
Right.
So to have it mean what it means now, with the Bears actually taking the North, it's pretty cool to be part of the ride. The
Bears have taken it. Will they ever give it back? And by the way, Dan, I think we have learned your New Year's resolution for 2026 is to match the juice.
Match the Ben Johnson juice.
Can you match the juice in 2026?
It's a goal of mine every day. I am a huge resolutions guy. I have a bulletin board in my office. Every year I slap it up. I'll send you guys the format for it. And so
Ruthie has never written down a goal. Dan, Ruthie has never written down a goal before.
No, that's not true. That's not true. I'm just not a big New Year's resolution gal. It's not really my thing.
I'm huge. You know what's interesting? Like I save these too. And so it's like sometimes the resolutions that I set in like 2009 don't get done until 2013. But I think just writing them down gives me a little bit of follow through, and so it's kind of cool to track that part of my journey.
I love
Dan,
it.
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year,
Keep
Dan.
writing down those goals.
I might see you out there later today.
All right, looking forward to it. Happy New Year to you
Happy
guys.
New Year.